And you're like, all right, what is the cheapest house in Palo Alto? And it was, I think $650,000, and it was East Palo Alto, and literally the pictures had police tape around it. And then you're like, all right, well, what does $650,000 get me in Lincoln? And it came back zero, because there wasn't anything that expensive at the time.
From Grindstone, this is Nebraska Made, a narrative journey through the lives of Nebraska's most inspiring business leaders. We unpack the intimate details of how our guests navigated obstacles and built their companies in pursuit of the good life. I'm JT Martin, and today's guest is the former president of the Nebraska Angels Network and founder of Enterprise Legal Studio, Bart Dillashaw. Bart Dillashaw is an extremely humble Silicon Valley transplant. He spent the first part of his career as an attorney rubbing shoulders with Mark Cuban and Elon Musk and learning about corporate law at some of the most innovative tech companies in the country. You wouldn't know that he has a heavyweight resume when you sit down and talk with him, because in person, he's the definition of Nebraska nice.
So I was born in Houston, Texas, and grew up there, went to high school, and then, eventually made my way to Austin, the University of Texas, where I went for undergrad. Through high school, probably my big thing that I did was like drama. So I was in like plays and sort of speech and debate a little bit. So I think a little bit of, what later became liking to either argue or get up in front of people or talk to people, that sort of expressed herself in that way. I graduated with a sociology degree, which sort of inherently meant I didn't have any practical skills, and kind of figured that I needed to learn how to do something. Ironically, Pricewaterhouse at that time, was hiring, and it was really busy. And so they got essentially desperate for people. And so started hiring sort of non-accounting majors. I had expressed sort of an interest in sort of tech type of companies. So they were like, oh, we've got this little new company down in downtown Dallas. They're brand new. I've got about 20 employees, but they're growing pretty fast. There's a lot of people interested in them. They stream radio over the internet. This is a very new concept at the time, and so I was like, oh yeah, that does sound cool. So I'm going to start working there, and literally there are 20 people there, and I'm one of the low level, one of the low level auditors on it. But get to know people, and they're doing amazing things, and basically over the course of 2 years, I saw this company go from 20 employees to about 100. 2 years later, they got bought by Yahoo for $5 billion. And
with a B?
That company was, with a B. That company was broadcast.com, and it was Mark Cuban's company. So that was my exposure to startups and entrepreneurship and early stage venture practice. And needless to say, I was like, this is cool. This is a lot of fun. I want to do this. I want to hang out with these kinds of people, and I want to be a part of this world. And kind of had looked around and like, the accountants, no, I definitely don't want to do that. They're not having any fun. The bankers, they work too hard. The lawyers, okay, they seem like they get to do a lot of this stuff. They work hard, but not as hard as the bankers. And I was like, okay, yeah, so this is what I want to do.
So Bart goes to Texas Law School with the goal of working for a tech company in Silicon Valley one day. In law school, he clerked for one of the biggest Silicon Valley firms, and he graduates in 2002, right after the dot-com bubble burst. So not the best time. But he still goes on to Silicon Valley and coincidentally works for the same law firm that did the underwriting for broadcast.com. But Bart learned quickly that Silicon Valley wasn't exactly a walk in the park.
And of course, then I get there and you're like, wow, this is a lot of work.
Not as fun. I wish I would have been a sales guy or something.
Like, what happened to like all the like billionaires like driving around in like a new Porsche every day? Like, I'm like shuffling paper at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, hold on, and for some like startup that's not getting bought by Yahoo, I'll tell you that. The core of my practice was, working with venture companies, venture-backed companies, and basically public tech companies. So I had clients like Logitech. We did a lot of their sort of domestic acquisition work. Worked for companies like Google. Google was a big client of the firm, and they were always doing sort of crazy stuff. It was really fun to work on IPOs, and there's a lot of energy associated with that. Maybe a good story is I was not working on the Tesla IPO, but I was doing another IPO when Tesla was doing theirs. So, I didn't get to work on it, but I saw Elon Musk in the hall. I don't know if that counts.
That counts.
Yeah.
Hey, what did you think about Nebraska growing up? Did it ever cross your mind? Did you ever think about the state that was 2 states above you?
Yeah, no, not at all. It was corn and obviously the Huskers, but I wasn't a huge college football fan at the time, so it was basically a non-issue. So the reason I'm in Nebraska now is my wife's originally from Nebraska, and so when we first started dating in California, I was like the typical sort of, coastal kind of person. I was like, Nebraska, now that's in Minnesota, right? That's a city next to Wisconsin, something. I probably could have pointed it out on a map, but had no conception of what Nebraska was, or, I don't think I'd ever met anyone from Nebraska. It was just completely off my radar. It was really funny because she didn't do a whole lot to break through whatever stereotypes I had, because I think we wanted to go watch a Husker game, right? And we're in San Francisco, so we go to the Husker bar, and I'm like, all right, meet a girl from Nebraska. She wants to go see a Husker game. All right, that's cool. We go to see a Husker game, and I'm like, oh, it's a small state. You probably know a bunch of people here. And she's like, ha, ha, ha. So we walk in. The first 2 people she sees, she's like, oh, hey, yeah, you went to high school with my brother. Oh, yeah, you went to high school with my sister. And I was like, you're kidding me, right? And they're like, yeah, oh, no, I know Chris from, such and such. I was like, wow, okay. I guess Nebraska really is a small town.
And did that impress you, or did that kind of turn you off?
Both, right? I mean, it was... there's something kind of cool about being from someplace that not as many people are. I'm from Texas, right? So that, if it doesn't offend you, it certainly doesn't impress you.
Yeah, well said.
And, but it's not a commodity to be that versus, Nebraska, there's something unique about it. And it was really cool to, sort of it's kind of 1 degree of separation from folks, I guess. And since moving here, I've really learned that, it kind of is, maybe 1.5 degrees of separation from everyone, and I've really come to enjoy that. I mean, there's a huge strength that comes from that kind of community.
There's probably no better place to be working in law with these type of companies than in Silicon Valley in the 2000s, right? Uber and them came a little bit later, but you were kind of laying the groundwork for all this, and you were really at the forefront.
Yeah, certainly in sort of the center of the universe at that time for that sort of thing. Now, I think there was a little bit of, once you're, on the other lawn, you realize, the grass isn't that much greener, actually. It's still green, It's still kind of grass. So there was perhaps a little bit of disenchantment.
Yeah.
From getting it. It was still good, but it was a lot of work, and it's it's shocking, but having kids changes your life a lot. They should tell you that. And so started having kids. The work-life balance was just not in whack. One of the things that drove it home was my wife's parents had come visit us, and they were staying in our apartment for a week, and I didn't see them because I was getting home at 2:00 in the morning and then back at work by 6. And so literally I didn't see them for the entire week that they were here, and they were living in our apartment. And you sort of have moments like that, and you're like, this is not sustainable. This isn't what any of us want. And that's when we sort of all right, well, where do we want to be? And we looked around, and Austin was on the list, and we looked at a bunch of other places. Nebraska was obviously on the list. My wife's family is from Lincoln, and so that was a huge draw. And so in 2010, finally got a job here, someone that was going to be willing to hire me. So I was like, okay, I guess let's do this, and moved. And to your point about initial impressions with Nebraska, I was worried because when we started looking, like literally, I was like, okay, well, where does Nebraska rank on, venture capital, like the amount of venture capital that's done? And, there's lots of reports that, and the first one that I looked at, said for, 2006, 7, 8, 9, had like 5 years of history. Nebraska ranked 51st in the United States with amount of venture capital. It was behind Washington, D.C. And you're like, okay, this may be more of an issue than I thought. But found a firm that still did like public securities work, so there was a little bit of a type of transition that I could take my skill set and use it, not necessarily for tech stuff, but for other types of companies. But yeah, I was highly intimidated because I was like, well, I'm the tech lawyer. I don't know what I'm going to do, in Nebraska when we got here. But kind of got really lucky, I'll say, because right around that time there was a little bit of momentum in the local sort of scene to try to come together. Silicon Prairie News was just getting, founded. The Nebraska Angels were sort of taken off, and so like there were a couple different little communities that I was like, okay, all right, I can do this. There's some entrepreneurial activity here, and kind of, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go hang out with these people. I'm sure there's nothing I can do, but it'll be fun. Nebraska Angels was one of those groups that someone sort of introduced me to, and I was like, yeah, okay, that'll be good. Like they look with startups, I can kind of get my fix and be a part of that.
And this is where Bart's story takes a turn. You see, Nebraska Angels is an angel network of 80 individual angel investors that looks to provide seed and early stage funding to local startups and entrepreneurs. As of today, they've deployed over $39 million across 56 different portfolio companies. And how it works is the founders come in, they pitch the angels, and typically look to raise $500K to $1 million for their startup idea. On the angels side, it takes a ton of due diligence to vet and screen these individual investments. So by acting as a network, they have a lot more combined knowledge and capital to pool together. And Nebraska Angels have been on the front line of a lot of innovative ideas in Nebraska. They led the first round for Flywheel. They were the first convertible notes into Bulu, first money into Open Doors, the first outside money into Company Cam. They were the lead investors at Travify and LiveBy, so needless to say, they've been pretty successful this decade. And all of this might not have happened if Bart hadn't gone out on a limb and joined the network.
And at this point, you're kind of thinking, okay, you're going to be sort of a big fish in a small pond because you've been kind of rubbing shoulders with Elon Musk,
No, not even. I thought I was a fish out of water because it was so, like, and, this is 2010. Elon Musk wasn't really Elon Musk then. He was coming off of PayPal, but, he was not a household name. So, like, no one would care. No one knew the firm that I worked with or, had any sort of conception. So like all my sort of like credentials didn't really mean a whole lot, around here. But what was nice and where it kind of started to pay off was like one of the Nebraska Angels meetings, they had some term sheet that was done for a deal and they're kind of looking at it and they're kind of talking amongst themselves of, what do you think this means? And I was like, well, raise my hand. Like, well, actually, it means this, and you don't want it to be that way because you want it to be over here, and you really want to change this. And they're like, have you done this before? I'm like, well, yeah, this is kind of what I used to do for a living. They're like, really? Tell me more. And so that was sort of like, I was like, oh, okay, good. Maybe there's something for me to do here. And that was how I kind of got sucked into the Nebraska Angels, and then eventually became sort of president of that group. It was an early stage group, so like, it's like any charity organization, right? They're anybody that's willing to put in the time, they're gonna take it, right? So to be the guy that's like, I love doing this. Please let me know exactly how I can help. I think they were like, great. Here's the shovel. Like, you tell us when it's enough. And like, we don't have any money and we don't have any clients. We're not going to pay you, but we can call you president, maybe.
Maybe they give you a stack of business cards.
Yeah.
Like, congratulations.
Yeah, here you go. Like, want a t-shirt and a title? Okay. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. And so that's kind of how it went. And I was, again, it's super excited. It's the stuff that I love doing.
I mean, I guess back when you started doing this in 2010, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was Steve Keen doing things in Nebraska? What was going on in Nebraska? Was Huddle in a little office?
So Huddle was 3 years old at that point.
Okay.
They were known quantity. They were obviously going places, but I don't think they had they quite hit the inflection point yet. Steve Keen had just founded Nebraska Global. So like that was like Nebraska Global, I think, was founded in 2010 as well. And so they were taken off.
So there was a little bit going on.
There was a little bit
Tiny
going on.
bit,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I said, it was fun when I got here because it wasn't like a total desert. You know, there were little islands that I could go talk to and have fun and get affiliated with. But I do feel like we've got way more going on right now. I mean, just seeing the growth that's happened in the Haymarket, and you know, Huddle is obviously huge and a great success, but you know, you also have Capstone and Company Cam and Open Doors and Builder Trend up in Omaha, and we've had exits with like Flywheel and
and Grindstone Media.
Absolutely. Yeah. When all this happens, you know, I'm getting more and more involved in the Nebraska Angels in 2010, and you know, and I'm starting to get some exposure and starting to pick up a few clients. You know, helping them, you know, with some of this stuff. It starts taking over more and more of my life. And the firm that I was at the time, that wasn't the type of law that they practiced. So I was like, oh, you know, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can go back to the type of work that I love. In 2015, I kind of was at a point where like, all right, look, I want to do things the way I want to do things. I've got, you know, enough people, or I've got enough, you know, clients that I think I can make this happen. The decision point was one of my clients, I think I'd say Open Doors, was doing a financing, and I called the CEO and I was like, all right, you guys are doing this financing and you're going to use me, right? And if I leave, you'll still work with me, not just my firm, right? And kind of got the, oh yeah, you know, I don't even know anybody else at your firm. So like, okay, all right. Okay, good. All right, so I've got that deal. I can go do this. That was my final decision point to say like, all right, I'm going out on my own. I'm hanging out a shingle, and I'm just going to go do my own thing. And so literally bought a computer and a website and popped it open in, you know, in my spare bedroom, started closing deals, was lucky enough to have a lot of my clients come with me, looked like it was going to work, and sort of, you know, got busier and busier, and the firm was founded in 2015, and now we're up to, 4 lawyers and 2 staff and 3 of counsel, and you know, it seems to be working so far.
Wow. Yeah, and I mean, Nebraska is really kind of poised for a lot of startup growth here in the next decade too. It seems like, you know, Enterprise is in a perfect place to kind of support a lot of these companies, and you know, as Nebraska kind of takes off, you've kind of been in the driver's seat this entire time.
Yeah, I have been through absolutely no strategy on my end. I was lucky to be kind of in the right place at the right time with the right background, so that when I got here, there just weren't a lot of people that had a background in doing venture work, and so that's given me, you know, the ability to sort of, you know, have a little bit of a competitive advantage in going to work with companies. And then now that we've been doing it for 10 years, you know, we've got a good position in that. And yeah, I'm extremely bullish on, you know, the future of Nebraska and startups, and you know, it's fun.
What was it about Nebraska that helped you get to where you are today?
So I can tell you, it goes back to that first meeting at the final with my wife when she walked in and immediately recognized 2 of the 3 people. It is that community that is very, very close, where everyone is 1 to 2 degrees of separation. It allows information to travel extremely quickly, and that's awesome. I mean, that, you know, for a startup and for, you know, even my own business, the ability to sort of like, all right, who can help me with this? And if there is that resource within, you know, my region, I'm 1 to 2 degrees of separation from that. And that is, I mean, that is really unique. That doesn't exist in other places. Other places are either too big or too small or not connected enough, but for whatever reasons, I really love the community here and how willing people are to talk to each other, how willing people are to help out, and again, just how quickly you can kind of get to the resources that you need to get to.
Yeah. You can have conversations with people who really can make impacts here really quickly. They pick up the phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, Bart is still very active in the Nebraska Angels and hopes to help more Nebraskan companies grow in the coming decade. I'm JT Martin, and this has been a Grindstone production. Grindstone is one of the premier production and marketing firms here in Lincoln, offering everything you need to grow your business from video and podcast production to social media management and media buying. You can learn more by visiting grindstoneagency.com.
It's neat that you're telling these stories, and I'm glad that it's getting out there because it's a part of creating our identity as a state and as a community.